Here's a curious fact. Flautists have appeared in almost half the final concerts held so far, but none of them has ever won. So is a little bit of history going to be made here this evening? We're about to hear the Nielsen Flute Concerto with the soloist Juliet Börse.
My mum didn't want me to become a flute player, she wanted me to become an oboist because the flute is just so popular. But I prefer the sound of the flute, really. Because my mother's a music teacher, I think it helps me progress much further. It keeps pushing me all the time, having her. I really, really love 20th century art, especially the art of Paul Klee, Kandinsky, Gustav Klimt. But I do like sculpture and stuff as well. I really enjoy looking around interior design shops, places like that. I left King's High School in Warwick to go to Purcell School of Music to do less GCSE subjects so that I'd have more time to practice. I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist, really, but everybody who knows me expects me to do so well. It's quite hard sometimes. You're being hard on yourself, saying, oh gosh, I'm not playing how, I can play this so much better and everything. But then at the same time, people come out for a concert to enjoy themselves, to listen to the music. And you have to put that first, I think, really.
Nick, the Nielsen Flute Concerto was written over 70 years ago, but it's still not that familiar, is it?
No, I don't know quite why, because it's an extremely attractive piece. We were discussing earlier how seldom we've heard it. It's very quirky. It's got that, there's a sort of nature quality to it. It's quite a large orchestra. Although it's a chamber orchestra, originally it was written for, it's a large orchestra with timpani, and there's a very important bass trombone part where there's a great discussion between the flute and the bass trombone. It's a very exciting piece. I think Nielsen's an amazing composer. I think this piece will be a bit of a surprise to the listeners at home because I think they're going to really enjoy it. It's full of character, like all Nielsen's music.
Do you think it's a good choice for an occasion like this, then?
I do, because it shows terrific virtuosity. It also has a great place for enormous control, and it has a great sort of fire and spirit to it, which if she grabs hold of it and gives it in the right way and enjoys it, we will receive that.
And here now is the third of this year's finalists, Juliet Börse, with her Barry Wordsworth, who earlier today was telling me how impressed he's been with the sheer professionalism of all of these young musicians. Nielsen's Flute Concerto. the Flute Concerto by Carl Nielsen. It was played by Juliet Bosser. She started playing the flute when she was just 5 years old, and now at 18, here she is in the final concert of BBC Young Musicians 98. Being applauded by a packed house here in Belfast at the Waterfront Hall, and also by the members of the Ulster Orchestra coming on to take another bow. Well, now, as we start the interval here in the Belfast Waterfront Hall, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent makes her way out of the auditorium. The Duchess always takes a very close interest in BBC Young Musicians and asked to be kept informed of the results throughout the week of finals. She's been patron of BBC Young Musicians for the last 12 years. And accompanying her are Sir Christopher Bland, the chairman of the BBC, and Mr. Mike Ferry, Deputy Group Chief Executive of Lloyd's TSB. Also in the party is the head of music programmes for BBC Television, Avril McCrory.
You look cool as a cucumber out there, Juliet. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it actually. Yes, once I got out there, well, I was quite nervous before I went on, but once I got out there, yeah, it's great.
But did you find your nerves actually helped you?
I think so. I hope it pulled off a more exciting performance. Well, I don't know how it came across.
Such a good piece, though, and all that brilliant,
brilliant,
cheeky little duets you got with the clarinet and bassoon and the trombone, particularly. I thought you had a great rapport with the orchestra.
Well, yes. I mean, the orchestra were fantastic, and they've been great all along. They're all really nice people, which I think helps. And so, yeah,
great.
It's been great.
Well, you've earned a good rest now. Well done.
Get a drink.
Nick, a very strong, focused sound from Juliet.
Terrific. Look, this is... I had to pinch myself halfway through to remind myself, A, that I was in a competition, B, that this was an 18-year-old. That is a totally professional... I would pay to go and hear her play that piece. I mean, it's not just strong sound in terms of the balance of the orchestra, it's full-hearted. It's emotionally connected. She's listening to everything. She's using the whole space in the hall. I mean, we're all new to this hall, but it's beginning to prove a very beautiful acoustic indeed. And you can see her, when she looks out into the hall, her ears are going with her, and she's hearing the sound and she's responding to what she's hearing. I mean, remarkable technically, and very, very, very solid indeed. She's 18 years old. It's just remarkable, and I'm absolutely bowled over by it. Fantastic playing.
Concentration, I mean, she had it, but that's just so difficult, I would think, in a situation like this.
Yes, and not just that, but that piece is very sectionalised, as you heard, and so it requires an immense kind of knowledge of the architecture of the piece, of all the different sections. When you're playing one section, you have to think about the whole thing in order to make it hang together for the audience. I mean, there was no question of her being affected by the TV cameras and by the fact that this hall is full, and the fact you and I are sitting here and preparing to talk about her, all those things. She can see us sitting here. I mean, just not a glimmer of... I mean, she obviously is using the nerves in the right kind of way to make the thing more projected. It's very exciting playing. What a future she's got. I'm glad she's not an oboist.
Thank you very much, Nick. Now, let's hear again from Charles Hazelwood. Charles, I think this is the moment to reveal that the last time you and I met in Belfast, I was playing the piano in the Ulster Orchestra and you were conducting, so from your unaccustomed position backstage, what were your impressions of the first three performances?
Well, Stephanie, I've got to be so careful not to just be totally purple and over the top in my praise. I just think it's been the most unbelievable start to the event. We've heard three incredibly astonished performances. I thought the Haydn Trumpet Concerto was a brilliant way to start. She had a lovely, clean, focused sound and a tremendous sense of line, I think, which is very hard in that piece. And then the Marie McLeod's cello playing in the Saint-Saëns was just mind-blowingly good, I thought. She was so into it, so committed, and communicating every last ounce of that music to everyone who was listening. And then, what a way to wrap up for the interval, Juliet with the Nielsen. Just such good rapport with the orchestra, such a brilliant piece, I've never heard it before, and really just thought she did an amazing job, and it was terribly fizzy and exciting. But what do you think at home? Remember, you can ring in and nominate the player of your choice, but not until after the final performance, when I'll give you details of the numbers to call. And all will be revealed. The viewer's choice as well, of course, is the official verdict of the jury in our special results programme at 10 to 10.
Now, even though it's interval time here at the waterfront, we've got more music for you and more dedicated young performers. It was 2 centuries ago that a famous gathering of Irish harp players took place here in Belfast, just a few hundred yards from this hall, in fact. But it was to be the end of an era. The piano rapidly replaced the Irish harp in popularity, and actually by the 1980s, there was just a handful of performers left in the country. Now, suddenly, the harp is enjoying a dramatic comeback throughout Ireland, and Belfast finds itself at the forefront of that revival. 6 years ago, one of the country's leading performers, Janet Harbison, launched the Irish Harp Orchestra. And a few weeks ago, we caught up with them rehearsing amid the beautiful snowy glens of Antrim.
The Belfast Harp Orchestra is a new idea. There was never a harp orchestra before us. The harp was traditionally a solo instrument, but it would also have accompanied the recitation of poetry and indeed the harper singing. We play from the tradition, but we also play modern music or more contemporarily composed traditional music, if we can put it that way.
Okay, not so suddenly. Take it easier the next time round, okay? Right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
The Belfast Harp Orchestra is made up of, at any one time, at least 20 young Irish folk. And we're talking about children between the ages of 11 and young people up to the age of, say, 25.
Now, that's it.
I teach constantly by ear. The harp has been part of an oral tradition. That means that the music was never written down, it was passed from harper to harper through the generations. And it might surprise many to know that the first Irish harp music that was actually published for harpers was in 1967.
Come on now. Let's see if we can't clean that little bit up. So good definition before we get into that 8 chords there. Shall we just have a
It's a bit like learning poetry. If you can imagine learning your nursery rhymes, you start off with the simple ones. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great... Well, it doesn't make sense without the fall. And, you know, music is like that. If music doesn't have its completion, you know, its completing logic, it doesn't make sense of itself. Now, you cannot memorize something that doesn't make sense. So, I mean, that's where, you know, your sense of logic and your sense of phrasing and your pure musicality actually is developed to a very high degree.
I think that learning by ear has a lot of benefits. Like, first of all, I think, like, when people start an instrument, first of all, with classical music, one of the most difficult parts can be actually reading the music. But, like, with the Irish harp, when you're learning using the oral method, you can start straight off to play a tune, and there's no, like, barrier between you and the music.
Can I have us all in the key of G now, please?
The main thing with the harp, I mean, you've got 34 strings on an Irish harp, so obviously each one of those strings has to be tuned separately. And when you have so many harps to tune as well, it makes it a bit more complicated again. But basically you start on with one note and then you tune like in fifths and octaves around that until your whole harp is in tune. We're supposed to use like perfect tuning, not like tempered tuning like the piano, which gives it a fuller sound, you know. But like then you have changes of temperature and stuff like that, or if the harp is knocked into or something, it can put it out of tune again, so you have to kind of keep retuning them.
The harp is essentially a triangular frame instrument with a sound board and sound box on one side, and the sound is produced by the plucking of strings, and you can get the whole range of emotional experience in the sounds, for everything from the warlike and the heroic to the most romantic, to the cheeky and the lively. To the mystical and the fairy-like music. The harp has a very special place in the story of Ireland. In fact, every aspect of the story of our nation, of our international status, our international recognition, because the harp has held such an important place in the life of Ireland from the early Middle Ages at least, if not before that. The harpers were a professional class of bard, along with the poet and the druid. He was a very celebrated and essential member of the Irish clan life. In the late 1500s, Henry VIII made the harp the emblem of Ireland by minting it on the first Irish coins. And from that time onwards, the harp was pretty much accepted internationally as the emblem of the nation. Over the centuries, the harp has been an important image, not only in our sentimental ideal about Ireland, but also in the political struggle. So you constantly find the harp being represented in the Irish political struggle. Belfast has a very special history with the harp because of the gathering of harpers in 1792. This was only a 4-day gathering, but it was an attempt by the leading members of Belfast society to record the last vestiges of a dying tradition, because the day of the minstrel harper was nearly over. The piano had replaced the harp in the great houses of Ireland. 10 harpers only came to Belfast in 1792, and the young man, Edward Bunting, who was a very well-known and precocious musical prodigy, he was a very well-established music performer, he went along to notate the music of the harpers over the three days that they were gathered in the exchange rooms in Belfast. But he immediately was inspired by their music, particularly the music of Dennis Hempson, the 95-year-old harper, because he recognised in it the music of an ancient time and otherworldly music. In fact, he called it the Aboriginal music of Ireland. This was actually organised by the fathers of the United Irishmen movement, which was actually a Republican movement spearheaded by the merchant class of Belfast, who were a Presbyterian community. And they recognised that the harp was very much wound up with our idea of our own Irishness. And they hoped that the gathering of harpers in Belfast in 1792 was going to fire the national populace to patriotic fervour. The Belfast Harp Orchestra was established in 1992 as really to provide a local element to the celebration of the bicentenary of the 1792 event in Belfast.
Okay, let's take from the last section once more. Ready? 1, 2.
Everybody gets a hard time in rehearsals. It's a very concentrated training session because it's done by ear. They all are obliged to bring their tape recorders so that they can go home and work with their memories of the day. We would work pretty concentratedly for a number of hours, and then we would take a couple of hours romping up the hills or down the Strand or in the forest.
The members actually come from all over the country, both north and south. We have members from Antrim, Derry, Newry, and then like Monaghan, Mayo, Dublin, Wexford, places like that. And the best thing is, like, when people come from all over, that's one of the great things about the orchestra, because you get to meet lots of people that, you know, maybe have a different way of thinking than yourself, or that you wouldn't have a chance to meet normally, and you just have a brilliant chance to come together at rehearsals when it's a residential weekend rehearsal. You know, it's good fun.
Let's calm the pace a little bit, and we'll have a run through. Miss Hamilton, yeah? Okay, let's give it a go. Ready?
There's a lot of different types of music, so everybody should be enjoying at least a part of it.
I enjoy the variety of the music that we play, because it's not just all jigs, reels and hornpipes. Bringing more of the modern stuff that Janet's doing right now, I think that's important as well, but she's still
like keeping the tradition alive.
I'm from Dublin, and there's been a great revival in the harp in the last few years, and it's widened the repertoire.
The revival is just so great. There's so many people playing all over the country. Like it's great to see it.
The best thing about the orchestra is just getting to meet all the people and getting on the tours and everybody getting on well. It's the people most as well as the music, because you get together with them, you get to know so many new people, and they're a good laugh.
They come from all arts and parts, all communities, all social stratum as well, and they're a very mixed bunch, and you know they're all the richer for that. But also they're from both religious traditions in Northern Ireland, which adds a very important factor for us. It is part of our shared heritage, and it's been a great educational tool, or a bringing together. It's allowed for the bringing together of both traditions, you know, where they might not otherwise meet, particularly not in the context of expressing their cultural identity.
Have you had funny eyes? Is this an Easter
One of the important aspects of the life of the orchestra is the friendships that the young people create between themselves, and so it's a social forum, it's a cultural forum, and it's a forum for pure excellence in musicianship. I mean, that's what we're aiming for.
It's slagging, not slagging.
Slagging me now.
When a lot of people think of the harp, they expect you to see like an Irish Colleen kind of singing and playing, you know, the spinning wheel, which is fine, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but the harp can do so much more, and I think it's important like that people do realise that, and that's what the orchestra is trying to do, is to bring a modern perception of the harp to people. It's the way that we're kind of reinterpreting the harp tradition to bring it up to date, and like so we perform a range of music. We do perform some songs and like dance music, modern compositions, and then the music from O'Carolan and the 18th centuries.
The thing about traditional music and Irish music is that it doesn't matter what instrument carries it, because it is something that's accessible to everybody, and everybody can identify with the stories, whether it's a lamentation, whether it's a love story, or whether it's a political story, or it's a story of jollity at a party, whatever. All of it it just illuminates our joy of life and our appreciation of life and our respect for history.
Try it, and continues, and.
For many years the harp had been in decline, but there's such an energy now in the music making that it's having a very wide appeal. There's been a number of developments recently, particularly with ourselves. We're having great adventures. We're travelling off to America, we're performing in Carnegie Hall, we're going off to Germany, in France, and it's a licence to travel, and it's a fun thing to do. Also, it's a communal thing. I mean, people enjoy to make music together.
Great, that's fine.
An ancient art being given new life, and the Belfast Harp Orchestra will be back here at the Waterfront Hall in June for the Belfast International Harp Festival.
Well, like the Belfast Harp Orchestra, all musical ensembles need new pieces to play along with the established repertoire. And in June, you can see the Lloyds Bank Young Composers Workshop, where 5 candidates each have a piece rehearsed by Martin Brabbins and the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, under the watchful eye of James Macmillan and Judith Bingham. All 5 were set the task of writing a piece around an ancient Scottish plain chant. Here's a sneak preview.
I've been listening to a computer for 8 months, playing it back. And then all of a sudden you hear this, live people playing, and it brings it to life in certain ways. In other ways, it's not quite what you expect. I need that to be a lot louder than the tenor drum, because you just can't hear that.
Slur the second beat into dear, dear.
Sorry? Can you have the tenor drum a bit loud? You know that bit there?
Yep.
MF, can we have it perhaps a bit louder to compensate for the...
We're putting the timp in now.
Right.
We'll try it with the timp on wood, with wooden sticks, with hard sticks.
Okay.
We'll see. If you don't like that, we'll go back to timps with soft sticks, but still much quieter.
Yeah, perhaps a bit more tenor drum then to compensate that. Perhaps later, but
we'll see.
Try
Let's see how
first,
this works. Okay, 55. This is wooden sticks, so you know.
Okay.
If you don't like it, we'll do it again. 55, please. 3.
That's a lot better.
Would you like to hear a soft sticks piano?
No, I think that's fine. That's what I thought when I first wrote it.
He likes that, Gordon.
Phew.
Well, you can see the whole of that programme on June the 20th. A week later, BBC Young Musicians broadens its scope further and for the first time provides a platform for 6 aspiring young conductors. I joined them in Manchester, where they spent a week working with the BBC Philharmonic. They were watched and advised by Martin Brabbins once again and by the Philharmonic's principal conductor Jan-Pascal Tortelier. The music they tackled during the Lloyds Bank Young Conductors Workshop included part of La Mer, Debussy's atmospheric depiction of the sea.
With more crescendi, more... Force the crescendi. Keep going, into... Very good.
Well, already it's just a fantastic experience. I'm used to driving a larder, as it were, in terms of the orchestra that I drive. And here it's a BMW, a Mercedes, and already certain things which we would do in a larder, like pushing it to get it going, you simply don't need to do. It cruises itself. You just need to change gear a little more slickly maybe, which is, it's just wonderful to have this orchestra to play with.
And now be clear in 2. Yes. Yeah, I know. You must be more definite with that. When you are with your 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, bum, bum, bim, bum, bum, bim, bum. And don't stay too loose there, huh? 1 before 8. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
Well, the whole of the Lloyds Bank Young Conductors Workshop will be on BBC Two on June the 27th. Meanwhile, here in Belfast's Waterfront Hall, we're ready for part 2 of the Young Musicians' final concert. Now, you may recall that this event used to be called the Concerto Final. The reason for the change of title is a change in the rules. Finalists no longer have to choose a concerto, but they must play with an orchestra, and each performance may not exceed 25 minutes. However, this year almost everyone has opted to play a concerto, including our next finalist, the percussionist Adrian Spillett. Nick, what can you tell us about Joseph Schwantner's percussion concerto?
Well, it's a substantial piece in 3 movements. It was written in 1995 and it was written for the New York Philharmonic and their principal percussionist. Evelyn Glennie took up the piece and recorded it and has made it very popular and successful. She's played it all over the world. The first movement is very grand and bold, big sounds. There's a lot of repetition. This kind of music is often called minimalist, so it's not too extreme, but there's a repetition of things, and in fact that has a kind of meditative effect, a bit like listening to, say, a gamelan from Bali. The second movement is a memorial piece to a friend of his who died. It uses the orchestral percussion, as does the rest of the piece actually, very strongly. There's lots of the back part of the orchestra, the percussion section, really contributing, and the brass section too. Watch out in that movement for him actually playing cymbals, a small cymbal called a crotale with a bow, as well as doing something else at the same time. And the last movement is, again, very dramatic, and watch out for, he's going to do an improvised cadenza on what's actually a vegetable. It's called the shekere, and it's a gourd from Africa with beads on it, and he's going to improvise on that in a cadenza. It's a fantastic piece, very exciting.
Thanks, Nick. Well, that's a glimpse of the next piece. But what about the performer, Charles?
There's a couple of interesting things here, Stephanie. First, Adrian Spillett is the sole male performer this evening. And second, you have to remember that percussion is a relative newcomer to young musicians. Adrian's only the 3rd we've had. Could he be the first to win?
I remember 2 years ago going to watch the percussion final and thinking, wow, that's what I want to do. I'm the last one of 5 children, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, so I'm sort of the baby. But it's good because they all look after me. My mother is French and we own a cottage in Brittany, so every year since I was born I've probably been there once or twice. My father's just retired. He's head of physics at my sixth form college. Everybody was given the chance to play an instrument. I think that's because my parents felt they never got the chance and thought we should. I was the awkward one to take up percussion. I was brought up musically through Shropshire Music Service and never really had private tuition. I did a lot of work at my sixth form college. They were great for music. I never tried the NYA, and I'm really glad that I've got so far into music college and in the competition without any of those. I'm quite a keen sort of acid jazz fan, well keen on all that sort of stuff, but at the same time I listen to anything funky, anything groovy, it's cool. If you walk on stage and don't present yourself, then the audience probably won't want to know. The first few notes can often decide whether they want to listen to you or not.
And here is Adrian Spillett from Shrewsbury, who's 20 tomorrow, making his way out, not to the front of the stage initially, but to position just in front of the other percussionists and timpanists of the Ulster Orchestra, who, as Nicholas Daniel was telling us, have a key role, as you'll see and hear, in the outer movements of the concerto. Adrian Spillett opening the second half of this BBC Young Musician final concert with the percussion concerto by the American composer Joseph Schwantner. And an amazing response here at the Waterfront Hall from the audience. A concerto which uses 20 different instruments, including the shekere, which you saw Adrian playing between the last two movements. He was telling me it belongs to his teacher, and if he dropped it, well, his life wasn't worth living. And quite a number of his friends have flown in to Belfast today. And will also be celebrating his 20th birthday tomorrow.
I think I'm going to call you John Bonham now. That was absolutely electrifying. Do you feel high?
I feel shattered. I think it's weird. I'm knackered. But yeah, it's great. Really feel good.
I noticed there was a strange foreign body sort of floating around at the bottom of your water tank. What was that?
That was the percussionist at the back thought giving me a little sort of friendly gesture. And they gave me it this afternoon in the rehearsal and put it in the water tank for me.
And it's a little frog?
Yeah, a little frog, yeah.
I thought you had great rapport with them. There's a fantastic relationship
going on.
Yeah, we got
really well. They took me out and everything and really sorted out the parts. It's great.
Adrian, I think you've earned a very big pint of the black stuff now, so off you go. Well done.
Cheers.
Well, Nick, I have here in front of me a fax from Joseph Schwantner himself from New York with a piece of advice for Adrian. It just simply says, go for it. I think that's what we had.
The great thing about percussion is that rhythm is so affecting to the human spirit. It is the essence of music, it's the drive inside it, it's like the heartbeat of everything. And if you get a piece which is so well written as that, which actually really grabs the whole instrument percussion and takes it by the scruff of the neck and really does something interesting with it. I mean, he's written that for a huge array of percussion, so big it wouldn't all fit at the front of the stage, but so he split it between the back of the stage and the front of the stage. The thing is, he's utterly professional, and it's actually wonderful to hear him say that he's so excited to be here, having not been to a specialist music school, having not had private tuition, all these things. He's so excited to be there, and it's wonderful, I think, to see that he's so excited to be there. I mean, I think the judges have got a real problem. I do. If I was a judge, I would have a problem right now, because how do you compare the phrasing of a Nielsen Flute Concerto or any of the other pieces that we've heard with such a very high voltage, exciting, technically brilliant performance, which also was musical, which isn't such a vehicle musically as something like a Haydn trumpet concerto or even a piano piece by Rachmaninoff. It's very, very hard to judge.
Just behind you, Nick, we're watching a lot of the percussion instruments coming off. In your opinion of teaching in colleges and the conservatoires, is it getting easier to learn percussion?
I certainly hope so. It has to be said that the prominence of Evelyn Glennie has done such an enormous amount to raise the whole awareness of it. And I'm sure that percussionists are very grateful to her for that, because it's given them a whole new platform. I mean, a percussionist's career before would probably have been a mixture of different things and very, very little solo playing. And now we even have solo marimba players who do nothing but tour the world giving marimba recitals. And it's really because Evelyn's done so much. And they were there already, but they've got a fantastic platform. He's a great guy. I mean, I saw Ensemble Bash and Stomp and that kind of group, and he's just ideal for that sort of thing.
Thank you very much. Well, I wonder what the jury think of what they've heard so far, and in particular what the percussionist James Holland made of the Schwantner Concerto. In a distinguished career, he's worked on an enormous amount of contemporary music, both with the BBC Symphony Orchestra and the London Sinfonietta. And let me just remind you that although it's up to these 6 people to name the BBC Young Musician for 1998, we hope you will take part in the viewers' poll. The lines will be open for an hour between 7:30 and 8:30, and we'll be back at 10 to 10 to announce the results. But first, let's turn our thoughts to the 5th and final performance, and it's back to you, Charles.
Yes, Stephanie. Well, you and Nick have been sitting out there in comfort. It's been rather like being caught up in the rush hour back here, with the percussion being cleared, orchestral piano coming off, another being moved on, because, of course, it's a pianist we're about to hear now. So let's find out something about the life and times of our final soloist. She's Alison Farr.
When I was younger, I used to play at my junior school, and I used to play in all the assemblies, and I was always the one who had to play the hymns and everything. And I used to enter the local festival and win most of the classes. And I used to sort of take it as part of everyday life, really. It was never anything particularly special, it just happened. And as I got older, I sort of realised that it was something special, and it was going to be very important to me later in my life. I enjoy walking in the Alps with my family in the summer. We've been going to France for quite a few years. We're not really serious walkers or anything, but we enjoy doing it. It's nice to be up away from all the traffic and fumes of everyday life like in England. I juggle when I feel I need to relax. When you're a musician, you really need to do something that you can just have fun with. I used to play piano and the violin, flute and harp, and recorder as well. Now I only do piano and harp because there just isn't time to do everything. When I'm playing, if I don't think it sounds right, then I won't play it to anyone else. It's never quite the same when it's just in your practice room or at home to your family. It has to be in a really important situation when it comes across best.
Well, Nick, we end with an all-time favourite. Strictly speaking, not a concerto, it's Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini. What are the pros and cons of playing such a well-known piece in a competition?
Well, there's all the recordings that have ever been made of it, starting with Rachmaninoff's own. It's so well known that it's won this competition before, of course. Nana Markman won it. So it's a question of whether she's going to make her own mark on it, make something special of it, something different, maybe something that's never been done before in terms of the phrasing, the line, all those kind of things.
And here is Alison Farr, who was 18 just a few days ago. Steinway piano in position, incidentally, a piano which Barry Douglas chose for the hall when he opened it last year. the last of tonight's BBC Young Musicians in this final concert, the pianist Alison Farr. She played the Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini by Rachmaninoff.
You really seem to be inside that piece of music. Did you feel it went well?
Yes, I really enjoyed it. Everything went according to plan, so I'm very pleased with it.
Excellent. You had such a lovely sense of line and of spacing in the piece, I thought. And relationship with Barry was good?
Yes, it went very well, I thought.
Well, you've earned yourself a really good rest after that, Alison. That was amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Nick, the rehearsals, Alison Farr really made me sit up, but tonight she just seemed to go into a different gear.
Yeah, she's completely changed gear tonight. I absolutely agree with you. What I really enjoy about her playing is this wonderful sense of discipline. She's got a ramrod straight back, and she has this wonderful look of calm authority about her. She'd be fantastic in Schubert. I mean, she's fantastic in Rachmaninoff. But you know, in the classical early Romantic works, I can see that she could corner the market rather. I think probably as she relaxes her body more, she'll make more sound. She didn't. I mean, it was always heard. It was beautifully balanced by the orchestra and by Barry Wordsworth. But I feel that sometimes you need to absolutely thunder through some of those passages, and she didn't quite do that. But look, this is carping, because basically she she did add something new to the piece, which was a sense of classical discipline to it.
I felt there was a tremendous attention there to detail. The tiny sort of little fast passages.
Yes, and wonderful finger work. I mean, she had a little accent in the octaves, but I think they've all had their little accents tonight, and for goodness sake, we forgive them. Forgive any performer whose performance you'll really enjoy. You always forgive mistakes. Don't forgive mistakes on a record. It's one of the problems in our industry. But it's wonderful because she's got a fabulous technique. Look, it's all there. It's just, if she carries on, she's got great guidance from her teacher. If she carries on in that way, she's going to be fantastic in 10 years' time. Interesting to have the competition then and see what happened.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Well, Charles Hazelwood and I heard all of these players, of course, during the category finals. So it's been intriguing to compare the way they played then with their performances on this even bigger occasion. Charles, how did you feel that Adrian and Alison fared today?
Stephanie, it's been an amazing second half, I think. Adrian got us off to just the most wonderful start there with a piece that was sort of palpably electric, I thought, and really genned the audience up, and it certainly wasn't just his mates who were cheering at the end. I'm absolutely sure of that. Amazing rapport with the orchestra. And then in the so-called rack pag, I thought Alison was amazingly assured. She's got incredible technique. And as you said, Stephanie, actually, the attention to detail, I thought, was just sublimely good in that, really. So it's been great.
Now, the lines are about to open if you want to register your own vote. Remember, you can only vote for one person, whichever of today's soloists you think should be the 1998 Young Musician. And you do that by simply calling one number. Calls cost a maximum of 10 pence, so here's a reminder of the performances we've heard. The first performance was by Alison Balsam, who played the Haydn Trumpet Concerto. If Alison Balsam has your vote, then the number to call is 0891 980 111. Then it was the turn of cellist Marie McLeod. If you thought Marie McLeod gave a winning performance of the Saint-Saëns Concerto, then dial 0891 980 222. The third soloist was Juliette Bosser. She played the Nielsen Flute Concerto. To vote for Juliette Bosser, call 0891 980 333. Adrian Spillett was this year's percussion finalist. If the performance of the Schwantner Concerto by Adrian Spillett gets your vote, dial 0891 980 444. And finally, we heard Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini, played by Alison Farr. To vote for Alison Farr, the number to call is 0891 980 555. So here once again are the numbers. They all begin with the prefix 0891 980. For Alison Balsam, dial 0891 980 111. For Marie McLeod, that same prefix followed by 222. For Juliet Bosser, it's 333. Dial 444 for Adrian Spillett. And for Alison Farr, the number is 555. Nick, just for a moment, forget that there's a hunt for a winner here tonight. I said at the beginning that we were in for some marvellous music making.
Absolutely incredible. I mean,